So hello from my side as well. So as already introduced, I'm going to tell you something about connecting mobility services on a single booking and payment platform. So just an overview of what I'm going to show. So first I'm going to I guess you're all from a public transport background, but just to have the same wording, I will shortly introduce mobility as a service and what I will understand from it in this presentation. Then I will introduce you to the RegioMOVE project, which is a project in Germany, Karlsruhe. So also about its goals and how the platform is implemented here. And then I have a short conclusion. Okay, so let's start. So as said, I first want to say something about mobility as a service, where I found a very nice definition. So I know there are many definitions out there, and they sort of say the same thing, but I find this one quite especially nice. So it says mobility as a service stands for transition in mobility where a consumer buys in mobility instead of investing in transport equipment. So you want people not to buy a car, but to buy the service of mobility. That's what it is basically. Yeah, and so I found this quite nice. So let's move on what it's providing. So for first, usually you have a mobility platform if you want to provide mobility as a service. And usually they pool several mobility services like bus and train for a start, and usually maybe some car sharing or bike sharing. And then there is no order of what you can imagine to include, like the coffee when you wait for your train or whatever. However, there are so many different kinds of platforms out there, and they provide very different services. So I give them some names for now. So for first, I would have some information platforms maybe that provide information on how to get from a point A to a point B. So the most popular probably would be Google Maps, or there are also City Mapper in some cities and these kind of things. So you can't book a ticket there, but you get information on how to get to places. The next step would be a marketplace, which also has an information platform. But in addition to this, you are redirected to the mobility providers where you can then book a ticket. But you still need different apps or different registrations to use these mobility services. The next step then would be a broker platform, how I called it here, which has an integrated booking platform, which means that you don't need to leave your one app. So usually the user experiences a platform as an app. So you're not redirected to other apps to book your tickets, but you can book them in the platform itself, and you all have your services in there. Then a sort of little bit different would be a reseller platform, where the platform itself can define products like, for example, they would buy a contingent of tickets and then they can sell it like in combination. For example, if you go by bike to the train station, then it's cheaper than if you buy it separately or something like this. So these are the different kinds of platforms that I wanted to introduce you to. So we have the same setting for the presentation. Another wording that I want to clarify here how I'm going to use it. So I will distinguish between multimodal and intermodal. So so intermodal is also multimodal, but the other way around wouldn't be the same. So multimodal is just generally if you use different modes of transport. Like for example, today I go by bike to the supermarket, but tomorrow I use the train to go to visit my sister or what else. And intermodal would be if you use within one trip. Like for example, you go by bike to the train station to then jump into train and go to your destination. So where you combine different modes of transport within one journey. So that's how I'm going to use these two words. Yeah, and then seamless mobility is another wording that's very interesting, I find. So it's kind of straightforward. So you want to go from A to B and you wonder how, and now you enter it in your application. And what you then want to have is that you only sign in once. You don't want to have a couple of apps to use your mobility services. And then when you open the app and enter your destination, you then want to get different alternatives, possibly even intermodal. You want that they respect your preferences that you may have set before in the app, and also to consider real-time traffic information. Like you don't want to have an option where you go by car when there's a lot of congestion. So this wouldn't make sense, as there are then faster alternatives. Or if you're local, you might not need a routing, then you want to be able to book directly when you open the app and enter your destination. In any case, you want to be able to select the journey or book your ticket, and you want to receive all tickets with one click. You don't want to change between apps and look for the correct ticket and make sure that they fit together from the timing and these kind of things. So it would be nice if this happens all automatically. During the trip, so when you then finally got your tickets and you start going, you want real-time information. And if something goes wrong, like your train is late or something, you would like to have alternatives. So you get into your destination with the least possible delay. And you also don't want to have like many different bills, so it would be nice to get just one at the end of the month where you can see how and where you traveled and how much it costs. Okay, so this is quite straightforward with the seamless mobility, how you want it to be. This has some implications which are not that obvious sometimes. So for example, you might be a user who has already subscriptions in place in your city. Like for example, you have a public transport subscription which allows you to use public transport in an area for free because you pay a monthly fee or something. So of course you wouldn't want to pay extra in your mobility platform application, but you would want the platform to know about this and don't charge you again. Or in Karlsruhe, where we implemented the RegioMOVE platform, for example, there we had have the possibility for the bike sharing to have subscriptions where the first half an hour is free. So you also wouldn't want to pay for it in the platform app, but you would want to have this as well there and don't be charged double. Another thing is you would like to have a logic in the booking from your platform. This means that, for example, if you want to book a car, like for car sharing, and but the station's a little bit farther away, and you go there by bus, let's say, but someone at the same time books the same car as you, and the other one was a little bit faster, so let's say it's the same second that the system gave it to the other one, then you end up with only a bus ticket without the car sharing reservation, which then makes the bus ticket very superfluous. So you want that intermodal bookings make sense. So you want the system to have a logic to book these and to make sure that you either have a valid chain of tickets or none at all, or an alternative which makes sense. Okay, then also you want do you want to be guided through your trip? Since if you have your last mile with a bike sharing bike, so let's say you travel by bus and your last mile goes by bike, then it would be nice to then be guided to your bike sharing bike after you get off your bus. This was quite funny, for example, here in where we implemented our platform here, because this is not a usual use case for bike sharing companies. So in their APIs, it might not be uh, the information might not be there. So usually you go to a bike and you rent it, and then it's not necessary for the application to know where the bike is, because usually the user's sitting on it. So it wouldn't need to know where it is. But if you have intermodal trips, then this is always quite a little bit different. So there are another things to be considered. The trip monitoring is also a little bit more complicated if you have intermodal trips. You need then to always check the whole chain and see when you need an alternative. For example, if you have a car sharing car which is stuck in congestion, then you need to return it at some place, and you then go by bus. You will want to know which bus to take if you're stuck in congestion and late for that. Okay, and also, which you would want to have is, I mentioned the intermodal bill already on the slide before, but also you want to see what you traveled and how. So if you have, for example, a not integrated booking platform, like with, for example, a marketplace, you would have your history, you could check it, but you would have different apps for it, and you would need to split it up yourself to find out if the account that was withdrawn from your credit card or wherever fits the trip that you made. And in an integrated booking platform, you can then have all in one go, and you see it in a chronological order, which makes it much more transparent to the user what is what he has done and what is withdrawn from his account. Customer service is also a little bit more complicated when you have intermodal, or with multimodal it's already also more complicated, because you need to connect the different customer services from the providers, and you need to have one instance of the platform, usually of the platform operator, where the customer can has access to the different customer services, and which then also, so the customer service of this point needs access to the booking platform to see what actually the customer has traveled, and to give him advice on how to solve his problem. Okay, and so these kind of things, like this seamless mobility, like I described it here, we wanted to do with our project here in Karlsruhe. We call it RegioMOVE. So the slogan is in German. It's very difficult to be translated. So it means everything but, I don't know, maybe teletransporting or something. So to get from one place to another without, like by magic or something like this. Yeah, so this is where we wanted to do the seamless mobility, and I just give you a short overview of all the partners and the date. So it was funded by the European Union and the federal state of Baden-Württemberg. So this is the state where Karlsruhe is located. We started it in December 2017. It has a project duration of 3 years, so it's still going 1 year, but the application, so the platform itself, it has already a demo version, and there is a closed beta version already launched, and we will do so for now it's only a very small group which has access to the platform, but we will gradually open it up till summer. There is a sister project which is doing all the communication to the municipalities. So also in the RegioMOVE project, there is not only the platform, it's also the build mobility hubs, which means the municipalities need to actually construct them and then maintain them. So there is a lot of communication necessary there. So the project partners, we have 13 partners in this project. So for one, we have the city of Karlsruhe, of course, and other municipalities. They are providing the infrastructure and the data. And then we have 3 research partners. For one, the 2 local universities and the Research Center for Informatics as well. So the 2 universities, they are concerned with the ports where they are going to be located. So they do the mobility quality analysis and demand analysis to see where they're best located. And Research Center for Informatics, they are building a logic which is considering the preferences that the user sets in the app to be integrated into the routing. Then we have 3 IT partners. So this is for one INIT, which, so we are doing the booking and payment platform. The PTV group is providing the intermodal routing engine, and RegioMOVE, they are doing the front end, so the mobile application. And of course, we also need mobility providers. Without it, it doesn't make sense, obviously. So this is the KVV, which is the Public Transport Authority of Karlsruhe. So of course, this is the public transport, and they also have the bike sharing here. And the Stadtmobil is the car sharing company that is the biggest here in the city. Okay, so what's the goal of the project? So first, we want to provide intermodality, and very importantly, from a single source. So the one face to a customer and all the seamless mobility that I just told is the most important aspect of this. And we also don't only want to do it in the city itself, but in the whole region. So this means, of course, also in the city, but the Karlsruhe region has also very rural aspects, which makes it quite difficult. But the city of Karlsruhe wants to also increase the possibility for people in rural areas to use public transport and other mobility forms other than their car. Okay, so the RegioMOVE project is divided in 3 sub-projects. So one pact, this is concerned with the contracts. So there need to be a lot of contracts to be set in order to have all the 13 partners in one opinion, I'd say, and to build one project. Then it's a port project, which I already mentioned, where there are mobility hubs constructed. So the mobility hubs are, let's say, stations where there are different modes of transport combined. So it's very easy for users to change between the modes of transport. So usually there would be public transport for a start, and then you would have at least car sharing or bike sharing or other options. Okay, and now I want to concentrate on the 3rd sub-project, which is the provider sub-projects. That's where the platform is built. And so the user experiences as the RegioMOVE mobile application, in which he or she can plan and book intermodal trips. So to understand how this is done and that it's quite rather complex, I want to introduce you to kind of the system architecture. So for a start, so you see a user up on the top level of the screen, and you have also mobility providers, and now the user wants to go from A to B and using one or more of the mobility providers. So he wants to use an app, usually, and this needs a front end and a back end. So you don't want to have it all in one, because you want to have the back end running separately in order to have all the to have it all nice and secure and separated. Then this back end will need to have a connection to the mobility providers. Otherwise, it wouldn't know where are the bikes and cars, and yeah, it needs to provide the information to the user, and in a form that it's giving intermodal information. To provide intermodal routing, we need an engine for this, which also needs the information and an API to the backend of the front end. And then if the user wants to set preferences in the app, then we also need to consider those, which then will need to be handed over to the routing engine. Okay, so now we have a simplified architecture of information platform, but here we also want to book tickets. So, and here we have an integrated booking platform. This means that we need another branch in our system architecture. In RegioMOVE, we have done it like this. So, and so you need another whole bunch of APIs to all the providers that you see down there in pink. And you need so in RegioMOVE, we have a payment service provider. This is up in the right corner. Who does the business to client clearing and the business to business clearing. And in the middle, you have a big intermodal ticketing and booking platform. And this is the part that I want to look into a little bit closer, as this is the part where which we are providing, and yeah, which is doing all the ticketing. So we remove all the things that we don't need here, and we shift out of the way everything that is outside of the booking platform, so we can see closer here. So you may have noticed this that I sneaked in the customer service on the left bottom corner, because they also need access to the booking platform. Otherwise, they couldn't give any useful advice to the clients that are calling. Okay, so what's looking inside there? So the backbone of our booking platform is our ticketing and fare management solution, which is called Mobile Vario. There we have our user management. Of course, the user data needs to come in from the app, which then, of course, needs to be secured. We do this with the state-of-the-art OAuth implementation and authentication, sorry. And so we need an identity server, which is in between, to make sure that everything is nice and secure. Also, there is a lot of verification necessary, like email address verification and phone number verification, to make sure that everything is as it's intended. But the heart of the booking platform, then, after we have all set the user data nice and secure, is all the booking APIs. So of course we then need to have the APIs in place to book the tickets with the public transport company, the bike sharer and car sharer, and possibly, so for RegioMOVE, it's intended to include other providers. So we started with 3 because it's already sufficiently complex, but of course we want to have more providers. So for example, for summer, it's planned to include these e-scooters that are get more and more popular, and maybe taxis as well. And then with time, we will include more providers. Yeah, so the whole booking platform has 12 interfaces. So you see it's also a little bit simplified. And the handling of these interfaces is the backbone of the booking platform, to make sure what I told before, that the tickets are booked in a valid sense, which is suitable for the user. So you don't end up with a trip that you can't actually do later on. Okay, so I want to summarize maybe the benefits of this integrated booking platform, how we implemented it in RegioMOVE. So probably can do some things as well with, like, for example, deep linking, but it would some things are not really possible, and others may probably result in a lot of traffic on your system, so on your interfaces. But maybe it's possible as well. But here we wanted to have the benefits of, as I said, the integrated booking platforms. So you have only one app for all your mobility services. You register once and you book everything in one go with one click. As I told before, we can respect a subscription in the RegioMOVE platform. So the bike sharing subscriptions, as I mentioned, and also the public transport subscriptions as a user may have. This also means that you can connect with the accounts that you may have already with these providers. So if you're already a Nextbike user, that's the bike sharing company here, then you can just connect it, and the platform already knows everything that about your subscription and these kinds of things. Also, what's very important here is the intermodality, and as I said, with the logical booking engine. And one intermodal bill at the end of the month. So here in RegioMOVE we found out that it's not wise to withdraw also all the money at the end of the month. We would get reliability problems with this, because if you use car sharing for a month, you can get quite a lot of money together, and if you're then not if you then get a customer which is not willing to pay, you may have a problem. So you would want to avoid this. So we withdraw the money in shorter times, but we get one bill at the end of the month to don't spam the user with emails and these kind of things. So, and there is a lot of more potential for the integrated booking platform. So for one, we want to integrate more partners, as I said already, and probably RegioMOVE will also at one day have these bundles, like or let's say these versions where you can go by bike to the public transport station and then have pay less for the bike, for example. So it's a benefit for the user here as well. Okay, so and if I would like you to take anything away of this talk, it's that a mobility platform is more than the sum of its components, or at least it can be if you have a, like, for example, integrated booking platform, and that's what you want to have. You want it to be more than the sum of its components. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.